Now, I don't actually have to define constrained loops in a circuit. I can always choose all the enclosed non-overlapping areas and define a mesh current in each of those. So I can make this mesh current I1, say, and this mesh current I2, and then I can write KVL twice around both circuits. So KVL around loop I1. If I start out down here, I have a voltage difference across this current source, but it's a current source. There is nothing that I know about the voltage across this current source, so I need to define an unknown voltage. I'll call that V sub S. So I see the negative terminal on V sub S, so minus V sub S plus 20 ohms times I1 minus I2 plus 5 volts is equal to 0. Now let me do KVL around loop 2. If I start down here, I see the negative terminal of the 5-volt source first, plus 20 ohms. My currents through that are going to be I2 minus I1, and then plus 10 ohms times the only current through the 10 ohm resistor is I2. That sums to 0. I have a problem now though. I have two equations, but I have three unknowns. I've introduced another unknown, the voltage across the current source, in this equation to account for that. So what I need rather than a constrained loop is what's called a constraint equation. Keep in mind that the physical current through any device is the sum of the mesh currents going through that device. So I know that there's 18 amps going in this direction through the current source. I1 is the only mesh current that goes through that current source, so I1 has to match that current. Now I've got three equations and three unknowns. I can take this equation, plug it in here. I don't really even need this equation anymore because this now becomes one equation and one unknown. If I solve that, I'm going to get I2 is equal to 365 over 30 amps, I2. I2 is now the same as the current that I want, I, so I is equal to 365 over 30 amps, and I keep getting the same answer, which is very comforting. And it doesn't matter, it's just a little bit more work because you have additional variables and additional equations that you have to write.